Hello again. Samuel Prideaux Tregelles, in his comments on Daniel, he's dealing with chapter 2, the details of the four metals, and specifically the last part of the rule of the fourth empire. The legs of iron that somehow end up in feet of clay. And in detailing the differences between the four empires, and especially the significance of the last one, which we're never told is overthrown, not by humans anyway, but finally is overthrown by the stone not cut out by hands. So Tregelles is among the great majority of interpreters of that generation and before and since, who think that the description of the 10 toes, or at least the feet of the idol in chapter 2, correspond with the division into 10 in the probably more famous vision and the more specific vision of chapter 7, the four beasts, the fourth beast being the one that is not conquered by human hands but declines. And chapter 2 has one angle on the declension of the fourth empire. So here's Tregelles' comments. Each of the four kingdoms appears as succeeding that which had gone before, not as annihilating it, but as incorporating it within itself, each making, as it were, the dominion of the metal which had gone before a part of itself. Just so do we read in chapter 5, verse 28, of the manner in which the kingdom of the Medes and Persians succeeded to that of Babylon. Quote, "Thy kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians." Unquote. The kingdom not being, as it were, destroyed, but transferred. That is, the cities and nations were to continue in existence, while the glory, which had belonged to them, passed into the hand of other powers. Babylon stands as the head of the image, and this headship existing throughout the whole gives the image its identity. The four powers succeeded one another as the actual holders of the dominion, and as they thus came into view, so is their place been seen successively in the image. Babylon may be defined as having been power in the form of absolute autocracy. Persia, power in the hands of the king, while nobility of person and descent were everything. The nobles were the king's equals in rank, though not in office. In Greece there was the aristocracy, not of birth, but of supposed excellence, as evinced by the power of the mind of man and individual influence. In Rome, power had a still lower character, for the emperor was entirely dependent upon popular choice, and soldiers commonly bestowing the imperial dignity upon a successful general. In fact, the very name of emperor, imperator, arose from any commander having been so saluted by his soldiers after a victory, if they were satisfied with his conduct. If they did not so salute him, then he could not receive the public honors of a triumph. Thus we see that in the Roman Empire, power actually was derived from the people, and it may also be worthy of observation that the emperors succeeded one another rather in the way of popular military election than in that of hereditary rule. The committal of power, in all the fullness spoken of in verses 37 and 38, appears to belong to Nebuchadnezzar personally, or at all events to have been confined to the kingdom of Babylon. In verse 40 we have rather the character of the Roman power than its territorial extent. This latter subject does not appear to belong to the scope of the present vision, which we have to regard especially as speaking of those kingdoms in their succession from Babylon, and the crisis to which they tend. The potter's clay, that's verse 41, means, I believe, simply earthenware, that which is hard but yet brittle. Softness does not seem to be at all the thing pointed out. Now, an image which stood partly upon feet of earthenware would be very stable so long as there was nothing but direct pressure brought to bear upon those feet, while a blow falling upon them would break them to pieces, and that only the more thoroughly from the fact of iron being intermixed with the earthenware. This, I believe, to be the thought here presented to us. We see from verse 42 that the part of the feet thus formed of iron and clay intermixed was the toes, And the interpretation which is given is, the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken, or rather brittle. In verse 43, the explanation is continued. They shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. Thus there will be power in its deteriorated form, iron, mixed up with that which is wholly of man, and which, when put to the proof, is found to be only weakness itself. Thus we see this fourth empire especially brought before us at a time when in a divided condition, and when thus debased. The number of the toes of the feet appears to imply a tenfold division. This may be taken as a hint given to us here, although the more specific statement of the fact is not told us till farther on in the book, specifically chapter 7. This kingdom is then divided into parts, which we shall see from other portions of the scripture to be exactly 10. Power in the hands of the people is seen having no internal stability, although something is still left of the strength of the iron. More to come on the final state of the image according to Daniel 2. I'll put in a link to a commentary we did on Daniel chapter 11. The whole Watchtower House of Cards falls apart if you just look at the details in the latter part of Daniel chapter 11. So the interpretive peril, of ignoring specifics is the point of this video. And I'll also put a link into the Daniel playlist, which now has several dozen videos in that specific playlist, which are all of great moment if you're dealing with Jehovah's Witnesses, because so much of their self-image depends on this book. And of course it has much to say about three of their badge issues, namely the neutral political stance that they adopt. What does Daniel have to say about that? What does Daniel have to say about the kingdom? And what does Daniel have to say about the name? All of these things are of great moment if you're dialoguing with Jehovah's Witnesses, or witnesses being your loved ones, or just casually. And therefore mastery of the book of Daniel is probably one of the best options you have in terms of continued success with them, because they want to talk about that book. They think they have unique insights into it. So we've done lots of videos, and here's the playlist on your screen, along with the specific video, which is about the JW House of Cards. When will it collapse? The interpretive peril of ignoring specifics. See you soon.